If we chase the features, we are going to lose, right? So what we focus on is the needs of the user. Most of our users are from enterprise or mid-market companies. What they care the most is data security and compliance. And Diaflow is fully compliant with GDPR, SOC 2, and HIPAA, so that people can use Diaflow in different industry, different segment, different region. It really surprised me that the users over there bought the idea, because in our mind, the product should be B2B only, which is
Mm,
those customers will rely heavily on professional services, which is where
mm,
we come from, right? We develop
yeah.
software, we build big software. So that's what in our mindset. Until the moment when we launch on these platforms, the adoption is crazy. Like people buy, people use, we will give question. And that's the moment that we are so excited, because this is what we are looking for. This is the very early signs of product market fit. And surprisingly, US market. Why? And we learn a lot from that.
Hi, folks. Welcome back to On Call with Insignia, where we go on call with leaders innovating the future of Southeast Asia's and internet and digital economy and beyond, or as we like to call it, as innovation. I'm your host, Paolo Aquino, and we are back with a recently, I would say, joint founder to our growing Insignia portfolio family. He's a founder, a Vietnamese founder, but has had a global experience working with many different tech companies, founding several of these companies as well across the globe in the US and Europe as well. And now he's back in Southeast Asia, Singapore and Southeast Asia, to build what he believes is the next phase of how we use AI, agentic AI, to improve our workflows for businesses to improve their productivity. Right? So I have none other than Viet with me on this call. Viet, how are you doing? And thanks for joining us on call.
Oh, hey, Paulo. Thanks for the warm introduction. Today is a great day. So I would love to be part of this one, and happy to answer any question that you have in the podcast, in the list.
You're right. Yeah, I think it would be best to start from the very beginning, right? How you co-founded Diaflow with your fellow tech operators. All of you have years of experience combined, Lai and Anne. So maybe you can share a little bit of where you were at that point when you started Diaflow, considering your previous venture experiences and why you decided to zero in on a building an autonomous AI platform, right? To really redefine workflow automation.
Yeah, very good question. In me, we have been together, I would say, for more than 7 years already.
Mm,
I still remember the moment that we met was on May 2017. It was my first startup in Switzerland, where I lived and studied before. I'm a business guy. My background is in finance. So even though my family is a tech-based company, so we first developed the first
mm,
dictionary for Vietnam,
interesting. Yeah.
and we sold that to Apple in 2014. The product development core is in my heart already. But what I have when I went to university, I have decided to study finance instead
Mm,
of technology, because when watching my parents running the company, I realized that cash flow, money management is much more important than the product itself, because technology
mm.
change, right? But there's one thing that it shouldn't change is how you run a business. So I'm really confident with my specialty, and I need to find someone who can take care of the product development and the engineering part of the company for me. So that's the moment I met Lai. So at that time, he was the one building the 4G network in Vietnam with Viettel. In afternoon coffee, I asked him, "Hey, do you want to do something much more interested global wise?" Because my first startup is global from day one as well. So we started in Switzerland and we expanded to 5 countries. And he said, "Oh yeah, why not? Why don't we do it?" So he was the one who took care of the entire backend of the system.
Mm,
And I need someone who can build the front facing of the app, the user interface. And that moment, Lai introduced me to An, which is his friends, and we start together. That's how we build up a team that has been for 7 years, right? There are highs and lows working together. And then we fell in 2020 when COVID hits. No one is allowed to travel. No one is allowed to deliver food. So the first startup died, right? And then we co-founded another company. That company mainly is focused on delivering custom software for banks, for retail company, and most of the time it's all about automating something, right? In the
Mhm.
company, when the bigger the company, the bigger the workload that you want to automate, right? Because that is what is going to save you money. You invest money in a new software because you want to save money in the long run, right? And we share the same frustration working with them. You see, we build most of the product is scalable product for enterprise, and we realize that it doesn't save them time. It doesn't save them money. They invest a lot of money, but they follow the old mindset. It's still button and clicks. Nobody wants to change the behavior to another software, right? When OpenAI introduced the new interface that people can chat over that, they hey, why don't we build software but it's fully automated? It doesn't rely on traditional method of data input, but it's a brand new one. So that's the reason why we started Diaflow. So what we do is that even though the system is fully autonomous, we allow customer to build the workflow or the AI agents themselves. Luckily, the idea is bought by everyone in the founding team, and we start founding a new company.
What I find interesting is you're not just serial entrepreneurs, but a serial founding team. Like you've stuck together
Mm,
through different businesses, and obviously, what led to Diaflow was the pain points, your own pain points, trying to build different kind of enterprise automation solutions already for your like previous startup, so to speak. Because you already had these like customers and enterprise that you're working with, did you think it made it a lot easier to introduce this new way of doing things? Or was it actually harder? Because again, as you mentioned, it's not just about the technology, but it's also about the behavior, right?
the biggest moment that we realized that when we finished the product development and
Mm,
we introduced to people at that company, the worst moment is that you realize that non-technical users are struggling using the product you built. Because when you do software outsourcing, you follow the lead of the customer. Sometimes it's frustrating because you cannot put your idea into the product that you build because the ownership is not yours. And that's a moment that we see that we have to start something our own. And
mm.
Diaflow is a product that we own, we design, we study the customer ourselves, and we build it up. And if you look at the user interface of Diaflow, it's really make a difference on the market.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
it's definitely made an impact in the first few months since it launched. It ranked, I think, number one on Product Hunt for a bit, and it also achieved over 10,000 users with most of the adoption in the US, which is quite significant considering there are a lot of AI companies that are coming out of the US. Did
Yeah.
this surprise you, this particular growth trajectory, and specifically that it was a lot of it coming from the US?
It totally surprised the entire team. We launch on these platforms just to test how the product work, if there's any bug, how about the feedback. But then it booms, and in just 2 weeks after the launch, more than 2,000 users sign up and use it on a daily
Mm,
basis. It really surprised me that the users over there bought the idea because in our mind, the product should be B2B only, which is
mm,
those customers will rely heavily on professional services, which is where
mm.
we come from, right? We develop
Yeah.
software, we build big software. So that's what in our mindset. Until the moment when we launch on these platforms, the adoption is crazy. Like people buy, people use, we will give question. And that's the moment that we are so excited because this is what we are looking for. This is the very early signs of product market fit. And surprisingly, US market. Why? And we learn a lot from that.
What do you think
Yeah.
specifically resonated with US users, right? Or even US businesses when it came to adopting your platform?
If you look at the big picture right now, most of AI companies are from the US, right? OpenAI, Google, Gemini, Anthropic is Canada, but still it's American. Since this is where most of the AI hypes come from, so people have higher AI familiarity, right? So it increased the willingness to experience new things. Imagine if you pay for OpenAI, you cannot use other platform advantages. If you use some platform, you cannot use the best of other models. right?
Mm.
So that's the reason I think US enterprise, US customer have higher AI adoption because of the familiarity. And the second thing is the power of purchase. Like people are quite familiar with paying for subscription and spending money, higher income as well. And I think that's the reason behind everything.
And given this level of product market fit with, I guess, the US market in particular, how does this affect your view of where Diaflow should expand and drive adoption in the next 2 to 3 years? Because obviously you say you're gonna focus on a different market. Maybe the same kind of drivers or the behavior will be different in those markets as well. So how are you thinking
Yeah,
about geographical expansion?
I think the US will keep leading the market for a couple of more years due to the talent penetration, the openness to experience, even from the regulation level. If you deploy AI in Europe, there are a lot of regulation that you have to comply,
Mhm.
right? There are a lot of languages that you have to customize your product to fit with. And you will see the similarity in Southeast Asia. Each country has its own language. Localization is one of the key. Now we are starting to see that the US market is getting more saturated. More and more company will focus more on territories outside of the US,
Mhm.
like Southeast Asia. That's the moment that we see big company are putting offices in these local area. I think for the next 3 years, I think AI will be everywhere. Not just the US will still leading the market, but I think we will see more AI adoption and familiarity in the world.
And I guess that
Yeah.
you guys as Diaflow want to follow that, I guess, increasing kind of adoption globally as well. And obviously,
Yep.
I'm sure this has crossed your mind as you've seen a lot of adoption in the US, and obviously there's also a lot of competition there as well. You've also thought about how does Diaflow differentiate itself, right, from other AI platforms, other agentic AI builders, right, for workflow automation. How have you approached that question, and how have you developed that differentiation over the months and years since you launched the platform?
If we chase the features, we are going to lose, right? So what we focus on is the needs of the user. Most of our users are from enterprise or mid-market companies. What they care the most is data security and compliance. And Diaflow is fully compliant with GDPR, SOC 2, and HIPAA, so that people can use Diaflow in different industry, different segment, different region. I think that is the thing that Diaflow focus the most to differentiate on the market. We don't chase short-term value, but really want to bring the long-term value to our customer. It's so hard to get into facility like healthcare or financial services, but we have a lot of customers from those sectors. The
Mm.
reason is Diaflow is designed with best practice security on the market. And I think that is something people appreciate the most. And we will keep following that principle. No matter how good the product is, it's obvious, right? We have to comply and understand the need of the business user.
How does then
Yeah.
this focus on enterprise grade security impact the way that you approach product development? How do you approach the versatility or ensuring that the platform is still able to cater to whatever needs like the enterprise might want in terms of what agents they want to build or for specific workflows? Do you see any kind of like conflict between kind of maintaining the security and the versatility, or like how do you marry the two? Yeah.
I think there is nothing new here because
Mm.
security standards have been published on the market for a
Yeah.
while, right? So every employees of Diaflow are well trained when they are onboarded into the company. They have to understand why we follow those security. We have all the safeguards needed to protect the customer data inside the company. That is our culture. We keep repeating about that. So when a feature is built or released, is fully from the heart of the people who build it, right? So that is something that we are really proud of.
What other concerns do enterprise have apart from security that are on the top of the list that you guys have been able to address? As you mentioned, you're not following the features, but you're following the user needs, right?
Again, right. So this is hard. And to, beside the security, what they care the most, I think it's about trust, right? Trust is given from the moment they first see the website, when they first start talk to the salesperson of the company. when we show the demo. So I think enterprise, they really care about those things. That's the first impression that you can start the relationship and sell the product. So I think it's all about trust. It's
Mm.
about honesty. We just sell what we have. We don't overpromise. In order to pass all those compliance, we have to do the same thing internally. That is something people care the most when they work with Diaflow.
And I think
Yeah.
trust is always a good mode to have, especially with enterprise relationships, because these are very big projects, and obviously
Mhm.
it pays to have kind of that relationship to keep the business going as well for the long term. I wanted to talk a little bit about how you see Diaflow. I know you mentioned you're not really focused on the features, but obviously you're seeing how the industry is moving forward. How do you see where the agentic AI space is moving, impacting the way Diaflow is building out its architecture, right? Enabling capabilities for multiple agents, processing using multiple models, and then obviously, I guess the important part, being able to integrate to whatever existing tools or software the business is already using. So, how do you see Diaflow continuing to progress in terms of the scope of its capabilities moving forward?
Okay, so if you look at Diaflow, it's originally a workflow automation tool and autonomous, right? So
Yeah.
basically, what we have been trying to keep up with the market is that we have a lot of AI agents inside our company. That is an eye for us to keep everything that is new on the market so that everyone in the company always be updated with the latest
Mm.
technologies or latest news about any updates from any company in the world so that Diaflow can know what to do next. Innovation is a part of our heart, but we only have 8 hours per day to work. We have to find a way how to work smarter, not harder. Every morning at 7 a.m., all the AI agents go to different website, different source of trustful data, get all the summary, and give a team what is the best on the market over there. And give a summary, give us the link. So everyone waking up before they come into the office, they have something new to share. For example, yesterday, Google just announced a new image model, right? And
Right.
everyone is hype about that. So even in our company, like at 8 a.m., everyone in the company show the result of that. So that's how we always keep people up with latest technology over there. So to make sure that we are not left behind, right?
Mm.
So that's how we leverage even AI in our daily workspace.
And I guess you're also using,
Yeah.
obviously, using Diaflow to do that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Diaflow is
so
the one behind that.
great for you to share that kind of use case even in your own company.
Yeah.
And I think it is pretty useful because these agents can run 24/7. And even if you have to clock out at the end of the day, they can still continue to run these types of workflows and update you the next day when you get back to work. I also wanted to talk
Yeah.
about the business model of Diaflow. And we're seeing this a lot in a lot of AI companies where, a shift from the traditional SaaS kind of seat-based or user-based pricing, but Diaflow uses a credit-based model. What was the decision behind using this type of pricing?
In the daily basis, we see credits right now is a proxy for compute. So when you run something, it basically send a message to the server to process and then return the response to you. And you cannot predict the difference of the message you send to the server and get it back. So credit is a method that allow you to make it flexible. So you don't have different rule-based calculation. People just pay for what they use. So that's what inside our head. But actually Diaflow is also seat-based. Right now, the pricing model of Diaflow in a couple of weeks is that people will give some free seat with that amount of credits, right? Because we realize that people don't use all the credit we give it to them. It's quite too much.
Mm,
So what we give is
right.
that now if they need, we lower the price so everyone can. But if they have more people, they can add more seat. Every seat will come with additional credit amounts. So it's going to help
So
them
they're kind
more
of a
flexible.
hybrid model. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
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 So that is going to help enterprise be flexible with whatever they are going to build. If they have not a lot of employees, they pay less. If they have more, they pay more. If they want to buy a bundle, it's even cheaper, right? We want to bring flexibility to more companies in the AI era.
I'll move on to another topic, which I think is very interesting for Diaflow. And it ties back to what you mentioned earlier of a lot of, even though you guys came from enterprise solutions, building software for businesses. You saw early on a lot of, I would say, like individual user adoption, not necessarily buying it for an entire organization, but maybe just using it for their own workflows at work or even personally. So maybe you can share a little bit about how you think about community. How does this tie back to the enterprise business of Diaflow? How does this ultimately help you guys scale even further?
We always perceive that community is the center of any business, right? We don't consider them as fans, but practitioners who love the product, who want to contribute the value to the community, how we can give more than just receive. And those templates, like what the community built and share to the world, it's something to prove that that is something great over there that they have thought of and people love, right? And that is something we are so proud of when we announce Diaflow community, where every user around the world can contribute their workflow to Diaflow and be reviewed by our team to be published to more than 10,000 customers worldwide. And that's something I would say, like even these community members, they are very proud of what they are doing. And we are proud that we have such amazing people doing that. In terms of universities, I still see that most of students, they don't have a lot of budget to pay for AI. What we are trying to do is that we want students to approach AI without any preconceptions. They can use AI for every students starting from 2026. Every student in Vietnam having the domain from the university will have access to all the features of Diaflow. And that is something that we are going to work heavily with other countries into 2026 as well.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
pretty exciting. It reminds me of being able to use Google Suite as a student back in university, and you guys are
Yeah.
doing something similar, but for an AI workflow platform. Because I think like the interesting thing about a lot of these AI workflow platforms or whatever tools we use, especially for students, it's like accumulated behavior, right? And I guess once they
Mhm.
develop an affinity for a certain platform, they might want to keep using it regardless of whether they're in university or they enter a new job, something like that, or start their own business.
Yeah.
Yeah, quite interesting. I think looking forward to seeing other initiatives that you have around the region for universities. In the meantime, I think obviously I introduced you earlier as one of our latest portfolio. If you guys are watching this, you probably would have already seen the news that we have invested in your seed round. And really the focus is on global scale and developing the capabilities of Diaflow even more. So maybe you can share a little bit of background, how you met Insignia, how you met us, and then why you
Yeah.
decided to partner with us, and ultimately where you see the funding helping out Diaflow the most.
I think it's all about opportunities. You meet someone when you never know if that one would be important in your life. You just have to be nice. You have to share what you can. And this is exactly what happened to Diaflow and Insignia. So I met Hao, the investment manager of Insignia in Vietnam, on LinkedIn. I sent her a message about, hey, we are building something cool. Do you want to have a look? And we met in early August 2025. And surprisingly, she loved the product. She spent the entire weekend sending me messages about how to build this, how to build that, what is not good about the product, what I should improve to make the product better. And I said, okay, interesting. There's no such VC in the region have posted me those questions. Because when I met a lot of VCs in the region, and what they care the most is numbers, not the product, not the founder themselves. And surprisingly, when I met Insignia representative in Vietnam, I was like, wow, she's really interested in the product. She can tell me what I'm not doing great. And I know that, okay, this is something that I have to follow. And when the decision has been made by Yinlan, just 1 week later, it's super fast. I didn't expect that the term sheet was giving like that fast. And we closed everything within, I think, less than 1 month. That's amazing. And being invested by a tier one VC in Southeast Asia, have a good portfolio on unicorns and enterprises over there, this actually allow us to expand faster and give us like a stepping stone for the next round. And also the good thing about Insignia that I appreciate the most is that allow Diaflow to build a workflow for Insignia to use internally. I say,
Right, right.
okay, cool. Okay, love from day one.
Yeah, you don't just get an investor, you get a user,
Yeah,
customers.
we got a
Okay.
customer as well.
Quite interesting. You did this pretty fast, like you met how August, connected on LinkedIn August, closed around in September. How do you see utilizing this additional kind of like resource to continue Diaflow's scale and driving adoption of its platform?
That is something that we planned from day one. From the moment
Mm,
we met, when we raise money, what are we are going to use with that, right?
yeah.
First thing is technology. Everything is moving so fast right now. New technology has been introduced every day from big companies. So we focus on how we can have technologies that we own. And the first thing is that proprietary data. What is the data that we gather that can help us build the system that have value in the future? That is the first key, right? So we really focus on training our own AI model, like the orchestrator, that have the capability to coordinate, decompose tasks, and select the models for the right task. So we can call all of them is multi-agent orchestration. That is something that we are following right now, and we have our
Mm,
own technology. Yeah, that is
right.
something that we are really proud of. When you use Diaflow, you will see that capability right away. It's a very early version of our multi-agent architecture, but it's going to change the way people interact with a workflow automation like Diaflow, right?
Mm,
The second goal is to expand our integration. There's a lot of companies, they don't use any software from other companies. They build themselves, right? So one of our goal is to expand the integration with those systems and governance capabilities because companies really care about data securities, right? So the more we meet customer, the more demand we have about how they want to control the data in and out of the system. Because AI right now, we have to empower them with our own data to let them make decision or help us make decision. So we have to control how they use our data. So we really focus on the visibility of data transfer and the decision transparency of the AI. We also focus on audit and performance improvement. So that is the technology priorities with the funding. The second priorities that we focus now is market expansion.
mm.
So as you see, most of our customer are in the US. This is where the highest competition is happening.
Yeah, as we talked about, yeah.
So exactly. So we have to find a way to expand our business. And the good thing is the adoption to Diaflow is quite high in Southeast Asia, surprisingly. So that is the priority as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
quite interesting. I love what you mentioned about governance. I feel like that's not talked about
Mm.
enough when it comes to AI adoption, data security,
Yeah.
and all of that. I feel like that's a very understated topic. So I think it's very important that you mentioned that with respect to how you seeing Diaflow improve its capabilities. I also think mentioning the whole orchestration kind of model is very important because I think that's what ultimately will, from at least from a product perspective, really define your product from the rest, right? How efficient it
Yeah.
is at really mixing and matching and finding what model works and getting the job done as fast and as accurately as possible. With regards to expansion, I'm curious to know what you're seeing different in Southeast Asia. You did mention there's a lot of interest in this region. What you're seeing different in Southeast Asia in terms of how they adopt platforms like Diaflow. And are there other regions, perhaps aside from the US and Southeast Asia, that you are maybe interested in exploring to drive adoption of the platform? Yeah.
Southeast Asia, if you look at the population, it has big potential, right?
Mm.
There are a lot of emerging markets here in Southeast Asia, and a lot of companies here have to work with international companies.
A lot of
So
offshoring businesses. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
offshoring, how you can facilitate when you have the language barrier. And I think this is not a challenge. This is an opportunity
Yeah.
because I think here we have been always chasing the technology from the West. But look at Diaflow. It's all engineered in Vietnam. It's actually have the culture of the Southeast Asian people, but with the international mindset and vision. I want to prove that the Southeast Asian market, when there are people here who can build such amazing product, the adoption is high because if we build it, we have to use it, right? And when
Right.
we first started selling in Singapore, we received a lot of interest. And then this is the first step to make it big from here, right? I hope that I can do that. I have big confidence in this, and I have trust in my team to do that.
Thanks for really sharing your views and also sharing a lot more about Diaflow. Obviously, if you're watching this, you can find a link to check out Diaflow in the podcast description below. Do try it out. You can start building for free actually. You get some free credits to start. And I'm sure Viet and his team appreciates feedback as he's mentioned several times through this conversation. So feel free to send your reviews and your feedback on. I think you guys have a Discord channel, right? Discord or Product Hunt or various other platforms as well. So yeah, thanks for coming on, Viet. Really happy to have Diaflow as part of the Insignia portfolio, but more importantly, for you to come on and really share your views on the space. Always great to see Southeast Asians building not just Southeast Asia products, but really global platforms, right? That are used beyond the region as well. Looking forward to sharing more about Diaflow in the near future and having you or your co-founders on the podcast in the next time around. Yeah. Thanks, Viet.
Well, thanks, Paulo, for your time today. And thank you, everyone, for listening to this podcast.
All right. Thank you so much. Awesome.